Hilbert Hotel was a paradox introduced by German mathematician David Hilbert in 1924 to illustrate the strange properties of infinity, a number representing a large quantity with no limits. Viewers can find plenty of articles and videos to learn about the conventional stories of Hilbert Hotel. In this presentation, however, we wish to use Hilbert Hotel to model something that literally everyone uses every day, but knows very little about, that is the social network, both online and offline. This could be the first ever practical application of Hilbert Hotel in its 100 years of existence. Anyone interested to write academic research papers on this idea is welcome to collaborate with the author of this video. In the original Hilbert Hotel model, there exists a hotel with an infinite number of rooms, so that it may accommodate an infinite number of guests. Now imagine Hilbert Hotel produced its own social media application, so that guests may book online and check it without the help of human hotel attendants. Here is where abstract mathematics meets hardcore computer programming and practical business opportunities. Imagine when booking a hotel room, the guest is given a very large number, specifically a large positive integer, as the hotel room number. Now for practical interests, the hotel room number lies between 0 and 2 to the power of 54, so that the largest hotel room number is represented by 53 binary 1, or 18,498,509,481,983, about 18 million billion. Obviously this number is much smaller than infinity, but we will explain our motivations later. Writing this large number in groups of 3 digits may be inconvenient, as most people are accustomed to 4 digits in a group as in credit cards. So let us write it as 18014398509481983. Why are we interested in this odd-looking large number? Because understanding it will literally change the way we run governments, banks and businesses, and how we manage our daily transactions. That is to say, hash numbers are the foundation of intellectual properties in the digital age. What we intend to introduce to viewers is hash number, a random large number that is unique enough that the chances of 2 guests being assigned the same room number will be very, very small. But why 2 to the power of 54? This is because in JavaScript, the primary programming language for web applications, 53 bits are reserved as the mantissa or integer part of a 64-bit floating point number. Technically informed readers will understand that hash numbers can be much larger, for example 256 bits. But 53-bit hash numbers are both practical and convenient, as when converted to base 64 string, they look like this: a plus stvnik equals or about 12 characters long. A 256-bit hash number would be around 60 characters long, which is too long to read and write conveniently. So it took almost 100 years before anyone thought of a practical application for Hilbert Hotel. But really, what does a huge integer like this mean? Hash numbers hold the key to the most important innovation since the Reformation and French Revolution, digital decentralization. To illustrate the significance of decentralization in the context of government and religion, let us look at an ancient invention called Cardano Grill, which is a cardboard with random holes made to reveal specific characters bearing a secret message when placed on a page of a book. We use the original Italian spelling of Cardano instead of French Cardan, as we believe this was the original inspiration of the cryptocurrency project of the same name. Fast forward to 2024, the way we use internet and social media today is exactly like pre-Reformation Europe. All systems are centralized. In 2023, the top 5 tech companies, namely Microsoft, Meta, Amazon, Google, and Apple, incidentally abbreviated as MAGA, collectively made over $1.6 trillion by exploiting personal data of individual users and source code written by free software programmers, without rewarding them fairly. So how can hash numbers change that? Let us take a post on Instagram owned by Meta for example. Meta charges advertisers for revenues. What if free software programmers work together to produce a clone of Instagram and share its profits with individual users? Omni Web is a truly decentralized web owned and operated by individual users and free software programmers, so that revenues from advertising or other sources can be shared with individual users and free software programmers themselves. In order to achieve this, we need the four components of Omni Web, namely, training, infrastructure, metaprogramming, and digital assets, abbreviated as Trimedia. Let us analyze the conventional simple startup model before investigating Omni Web 4-component Trimedia model. In the conventional simple startup model, the startup company needs to invest money to own the software and hardware to operate an application, which include the web and mobile apps, server software and hosting services. In 2024, this model is impossible to scale to compete with MAGA, namely the top 5 tech companies, Microsoft, Meta, Amazon, Google, and Apple. In Omni Web business model, infrastructure and metaprogramming corresponds to hardware or hosting services and software in the conventional simple startup model. In addition, we introduce digital assets and training. Of these, digital asset is the most important innovation and is represented by a hash number or base 64 encoded string called hash code. For Omni Web, we call these hash number and hash code OmniHash for convenience. The reason why digital asset is the most important innovation is because OmniHash can be used in monetizing and collaboration, to build up infrastructure and software of Omni Web, as well as in conducting training on Omni Web. The first step would be using I2P or Invisible Internet Project to bypass domain name system, the one seemingly harmless entity that devilishly prevented free software programmers from running internet servers from their home garages. Within I2P system itself, the server addresses use hash codes. The details of how this can be done will be explained in future videos. In this video, we shall focus on the conceptual aspect of how hash numbers can help achieve this. For convenience, we shall use OmniHash to refer to hash numbers or hash codes in subsequent presentations. To illustrate how OmniHash may facilitate the creation of a truly decentralized web, consider user Adam who set up an I2P server, and decides to let programmer Brian to store his Instagram clone code called OmniStargram on Adam's server. User Christ downloads OmniStargram mobile app from Adam's server and starts to post videos and photos on OmniStargram. Advertiser Donald pays Brian for displaying advertisements of his company. After receiving payments from Donald, Brian will pay Adam and Christ for their shares in contributing to OmniStargram. How does OmniHash work in this scenario? Each of the transactions above will generate a hash number or OmniHash, starting from Adam's decision to let Brian host his OmniStargram app on Adam's server, to Brian paying Adam and Christ for their shares. But why hash numbers instead of other ways of generating serial numbers? Viewers may refer to the topic on self-sovereign identity on Wikipedia for a detailed discussion, or we shall make a video in the future on this topic. For now, we will just explain that a hash number is generated from the information, usually in text form, provided by the first party, without involvement of any other parties. This self-sovereign property is essential in creating a decentralized security system. To illustrate the idea of using hash numbers for collaboration amongst multiple parties using non-programming examples for the benefits of non-technical viewers, let us expand Hilbert Hotel example to Hilbert Business Park, where instead of infinite number of hotel rooms, Hilbert Business Park now allows tenants to rent a plot of land to set up a company, from an infinite number of plots of land. Suppose user Adam decides to set up a truck company in Hilbert Business Park, and rent one of his trucks to Brian, who is now a driver. Christ employs Brian to carry some goods to Donald. So Donald pays Brian, who will then share the payments with Adam and Christ. So Adam will generate a hash number as the registration number for his company. When he rented the truck to Brian, they signed a contract and the contract was put inside an envelope. A hash number is generated based on the textual contents of the contract. The hash number is then written on the envelope containing the contract. When Christ employed Brian to deliver goods to Donald, they too signed a contract, and similarly the contract was put inside an envelope with the hash number written on the envelope. Finally, when payments were done, records of payment were kept in envelopes with hash numbers written on the envelopes. Now let us examine the question on how conventional simple startup model cannot scale to compete with Marga, but OmniStar Web Trimedia can. Using the analogy of Hilbert Business Park, when Facebook, the former name of Meta, started, it was like a very specialized truck company with few competitors. It managed to grow using the conventional simple startup model because there were no such near monopoly giants. Borrowing money, finding investors and converting transactions into real cash were much easier. In OmniStar Web Trimedia model, OmniHash is used to build up infrastructure, software and training. Let us go back to the analogy of Hilbert Business Park Adam Truck Company before explaining how OmniHash may be used in software development to build next-generation social media app to compete with Marga, the top 5 tech companies. Suppose Meta also set up a truck company in Hilbert Business Park and was a conventional truck company which grew over time with huge reinvestment to acquire more trucks. Adam Truck Company joins OmniStar, which is a cooperative-like truck company where individual drivers own their trucks, and sign contracts with OmniStar Cooperative, and track their transactions using OmniHash. So theoretically OmniStar Truck Company can scale indefinitely as the risks and time associated with reinvestment and growth are eliminated. Now let us look at how OmniHash will be used in OmniStar Web and OmniStar Gram software development. A typical software project could be much more complex than a truck delivery job. In a conventional software company, 10 programmers working on a project for 6 months will take 60 man-months. If we take 20 man-days as 1 man-month, then it would be 1,200 man-days. In free software projects, however, a typical function may take one programmer several hours up to several days to complete. For the sake of simplicity, suppose each function takes around 1 man-day to complete, then a project of 1,200 man-days might involve 1,200 different parties. Projects of such complexity exist in many other industries, such as construction, which would involve transportation as well, namely requiring drivers to transport various building material from various places, before hiring workers to assemble materials to erect a building. However, in such cases, the complexities in managing over 1,000 small tasks are coordinated by legal officers within companies involved. Likewise, in conventional software companies, legal departments manage various issues concerning a large number of parties. As such, OmniHash plays a critical role as the fundamental building block to automate the coordination of legal issues amongst various parties owning respective software components. Now let us extend the previous example of 1,200 man-days to OmniStar Gram, a clone of Instagram on OmniStar Web. One group of programmers will find free software projects as components to build up OmniStargram, identify the gaps between OmniStargram and Instagram, and work to write code to eliminate the gaps. Here you will see that GitHub actually uses 160-bit hashcode to identify projects and a list of several GitHub projects that we will use to implement OmniStargram. However, we will just mention them in passing here and leave the details for explanation in the future. The tasks involved may run to several man-years. Using conventional software development project structure, suppose these tasks can be broken down into parts to be executed by 10 programmers. Tasks of 5 man-years will require 6 months to complete. For free software project development, the crucial point to note here is that each programming task or function may take several man-hours or man-days to complete, resulting in several lines to several pages of code. For simplicity, we take the average of man-day per function. Then hash numbers can be generated to represent these code or code changes. In conclusion, Phase 1 of OmniStargram development involving 1,200 man-days may have 1,200 omni-hashes to be managed. So far we have only elaborated on the software development side of metaprogramming in trimedia components. Suppose OmniStargram server code can now be hosted on 50 servers worldwide using I2P protocol, and each server is owned by one individual user. Then the 100 programmers in OmniStargram team may sign a contract with the owners of I2P nodes, to spell out the terms and conditions for sharing the revenues. Further, these contracts will bear their own hash numbers. Finally, when OmniStargram users start posting on OmniStargram, each post will bear its own hash number. These hash numbers will be tracked for the number of viewers for each corresponding post. Then the owner of the post will be paid accordingly. Advertisers will also place advertisements on OmniStargram or OmniStarWeb and track their traffic using hash numbers. In summary, hash numbers, hash codes or omnihash are a mechanism to replace legal mechanisms within a commercial company to coordinate all these transactions above. With omnihash, free software programmers who have infinite amount of time as their capital may monetize their time as digital assets, thus opening new ways to work together and scale to compete with established top tech companies, without the need of conventional cash investment and the associated risks. Going back to the analogy of Hilbert Business Park, Meta Truck Company was a conventional truck company which grew over time with huge reinvestment to acquire more trucks. OmniStar Truck Company is a cooperative-like truck company where individual drivers own their trucks, and sign contracts with OmniStar Cooperative, and track their transactions using OmniHash. So theoretically OmniStar Truck Company can scale indefinitely as the risks and time associated with reinvestment and growth are eliminated. Using OmniHash to coordinate software development, set up decentralized web servers and share infrastructure, OmniStar Web functions like a cooperative for programmers to compete with the top 5 tech companies in the world, namely Microsoft, Amazon, Google, and Apple. We have not mentioned much about training within trimedia. But this video itself is an example of training within OmniStar Web. Anyone watching this video may sign up with the authors of this video as trainees, using OmniHash and OmniStar contract, a term we have not mentioned previously to include contracts written using OmniHash. In fact, much of the ideas in OmniStar Web are not new, but formulated from the long tradition of free software movement or open source projects. Due to the detailed documentation and learning from source code, free software programmers train themselves or learn from someone else, and the community grew exponentially due to the growth of the internet, whose growth depended very much on free software. OmniHash can be used to build multi-level networks for trainers and trainees, who will be rewarded to promote and grow exponentially. We have not enough resources currently to investigate as to why no one used OmniHash to track trainers and trainees within free software communities. but hopefully OmniStar Web will soon grow large enough with sufficient resources to do that, perhaps in 1 year's time. The most important thing to remember is that OmniHash can be used for training on topics outside OmniStar Web such as history, science, cooking, travel, martial arts, or whatever. This would be an app by itself called OmniStar Training. In fact, training using OmniHash on OmniStar Web will make it the largest training platform or online university on the internet, as OmniHash and OmniStar contract can be easily embedded into any existing training material, which includes videos, photos or even comments on existing social media platforms. Of course, the biggest benefits for trainers and trainees are the multi-level network effect of OmniStar networks using OmniHash, so as to reward everyone organically, as well as incentivize everyone to promote its growth. In this presentation, we extended Hilbert Hotel Infinity to introduce hash numbers as decentralized identifiers on OmniStar Web, a project to build a truly decentralized web owned and operated by individual users and free software programmers. Conventional simple startup model requires a large amount of cash investment over a long period of development, thus almost impossible for new startup ventures to sprout when established giants dominate the industry. OmniHash startup model based on Trimedia, an abbreviation for training, infrastructure, metaprogramming and digital assets, enables free software programmers, who have practically infinite amount of time at their disposal, to convert their man-hours into digital assets using OmniHash, thus providing a cooperative-like platform for literally millions of free software programmers around the world, to work together to compete with MAGA, the top 5 tech companies namely Microsoft, Meta, Amazon, Google and Apple as well as other established giants. This presentation is the introduction of a series of videos about OmniStar Web, whose training modules are designed to accommodate trainees in programming as well as non-programming skills, ranging from videography to cooking and foreign languages, suitable for anyone from 5 years old to 95 years old. Teaching and learning are monetized as digital assets using OmniHash, resulting in an unprecedented and self-sustaining platform that is inclusive to anyone, as the name in Latin omni implies any and all.